Yo, what's going on? It's your boy Redux, man. Uh, yeah. As y'all know, I had some personal things I was going through. That's why I was gone for so long. But we're back here again, man. Hey, we just gonna continue like I never left. Anyway, this is gonna be the season finale of What If. Don't mind that. That's my work phone. Of what if Superman was in Invincible. And without any further ado, let me sip this water real quick. That water's good as hell. I'm outside right now. There ain't nothing going on at work, so I figured this will probably be the perfect time to record. So without any further ado, man, I appreciate y'all for keeping the channel active. You know, I see that we hit 100 subscribers, 105 actually. I appreciate that. Sorry I was late. You know, I had like a lot of things going on, so my bad for being late on the upload, but you know, better late than never. So I'm gonna try my best to be a little bit more consistent. So without any further ado, we're finna get into this what if. And I still gotta kind of do it on my phone, so just bear with me. But yeah, we gonna get it right eventually. Now, we start this what if. Man, I don't even know where I left this off at. I think it was gonna be the start of the Invincible War. So this is gonna be like the season finale. So if memory serves me correctly, we left off where basically, the Invincible War is about to begin, right? So we just gonna cut straight into it, man. Honestly, like we just gonna cut straight into this. So you know, Angster comes back, right? Angster, my bad. He, you know, basically survived all the previous events, you know, due to the technicians, right? And so he unleashes an army of, evil variants of Invincible, you know, Sinister Mark, Omni Mark, you know, Mohawk Mark, Shiesty Mark, you know, pretty much all the Invincible variants that you could think of that came upon unleashing hell, right? So as that happens, you know, pretty much, you know, disaster goes around the world as they, you know, unleash chaos around different parts of the globe, right? And so we're gonna cut to because mind you, don't forget Supergirl is also there too as well, right? So she is in a fortress currently. She's in a fortress. Clark is, you know, at the crib chilling with Martha, and he goes to run some errands. So he's out currently. We're gonna say he's, you know, flying around doing Superman duties, and you know, we're gonna say he's in Florida chilling right now. He's in Florida. I don't know why he would be in Florida, but you know, he's more of a superhero around the world since, you know, I'm still trying to give him that Superman feel, but his main goal, his main city of focus is where Mark is usually at, right? So we're gonna say that, you know, heroes from across from the Guardians of the Globe, and you know, heroes from all across the other world are, you know, trying to fight, you know, different versions of, you know, evil Mark, but you know, they're kind of getting a push to the brink because the evil Marks are attacking mercilessly. They're not caring right now. So we're gonna get a little tragic. Little tragic here. So as you know, basically, you know, they're fighting. That's where the Mohawk Mark comes back, and you know, since Viltrumites, you know, kind of get like an XP boost on the brink of death. He's looking for Clark. He wants his round 2 back. He wants to run his fade back, right? So basically he wants to run his fade back. We're gonna make it a little bit more. I'm not gonna nerf Clark. We're gonna say that Parasite Man, Parasite. If you don't know who Parasite is, it's basically somebody who could basically absorb, you know, energy, basically absorb Clark's powers. So after he put, you know, Parasite Man away. He's a little bit weakened. He's still at full power, but he's not as strong as he should be. So he flies back to his mom's, and then that's when he hears a disturbance. He hears, things being destroyed around the house, which that makes him go, pretty much quicker. So he blasts off, and then that's when he comes back to the he gets here about like a good 3 seconds. He could be faster. So he comes back, and then he noticed the house is destroyed, and then that's when he bolts in, like looking for whoever did it. And then that's when Clark sees Momark, right? And then that's when he was like, how did you get here? And then that's when Momark explains that it was the work of Angstrom, as he struck up a deal, but he said that he had some unfinished business with him. And then he said he didn't like how he humiliated him in front of everybody. Now everybody has overthrown his perfect kingdom that he has. And then he said that in this world that he might not have much in the other world that he came from, but in this one, even if he so-called dies, he plans to take the one thing that matters most to him. And then that's when Superman was like, how did you even know? He was like, I saw the same look-alike that you so-called protected so dearly when we first fought, when you came into my world. So I thought that, maybe it could be different from this world. And who would have figured out that this is actually your mom? So, and then that's when his grip started getting tighter around Martha's throat. And then that's when Superman was like, about to bolt, but Martha said, no, don't. And then that's when he's like, see, look at you. I have you at my fingertips. Now, what you're going to do is grovel and beg for me to not kill your mom. And then that's when Superman was getting visibly frustrated. The bioelectricity, the aura was starting to come around. And then that's when Mark was like, you do something I won't like. And she goes pop like a balloon. And then that's when Mark started floating above. And then that's when dang, this phone going crazy. What are they doing, man? Hold on. Let me turn this down a little bit. Okay, there we go. So that's when Momark said, kneel. And then that's when Clark slowly started floating down on the ground. And then that's when oh my gosh, that yawn was so deep, man. It's been so long since y'all heard that yawn. So I'm sure y'all kind of rejoicing y'all heard that one, man. So basically, as he begins to kneel, that's when Clark has flashbacks with Clark having his first fight at school. And then that's when John said that you don't kneel for nobody except for the man above. And then that's when, because we'll say that he goes to church. Clark is more of a, I don't know, there is a guy, the presence, yeah. But yeah, so that's when Clark took that split second that he found an opening. And then that's when he dashed towards Momark, and then gave him the meanest hook in the chest and made him fly out the house. And then that's when Superman called Kara. Clark called Kara, as she flew in with the quickness, and she was like, what's going on, Kal-El? And then that's when he said that make sure Martha is okay, protect her. He has some unfinished business that he has to handle. And then that's when Supergirl was like, what's going on? And then that's when she said that that's what Clark said, there might be an invasion, so I have to go and protect the people. Please keep Martha safe. And then that's when Superman bolted off after Momark, right? So after Momark catches himself, right? That's when he sees he hears a sonic boom in the distance, and then all he sees is this red blur just, give him another clean, a clean hook to the face, and it's like boom, sonic boom. Every time he punches him, it's just sonic boom. Think of it as like Man of Steel when Clark was fighting Zod, and every time they hit each other, it was just like cause like a shock wave or a sonic boom. That's pretty much how it is. That's pretty much how it's going right now. So he's giving Momark the injustice combo, and then that's when he says the famous line from Man of Steel: "You think you can come in my home and threaten my mother?" And he's screaming that shit out loud. So after he punches him again, right? He bolts past him, grabs him by the face, and then, goes straight into the ground, just flying him into the ground. And, Momark is eating this because he really can't do nothing right now. He's getting blitzed right now. So after that, he throws him into like an abandoned gas plant, right? So after that, Momark starts fighting back a little bit. So, they're going back and forth, Oh, this Giannis killing me. They're going back and forth. Momark's really not getting anywhere. He's taking more hits than actually giving hits out. So he tries to counter, but Clark, gives him the big old boot, right? The big old Spartan kick, right? And so as Mark catches himself, Superman advances forward and, like force pushes him into the into one of the gas chambers, right? And then that's when Mark caught himself, he's like a little indent, and then that's when Superman lit his eyes up. All you see is like this menace, this figure that has like, it's, mind you, like it's dark in there. The only thing that lights up flashes is when they do like them sonic booms, right? That it's dark in there. They're fighting in the dark. So all you see in the dark is these red eyes, and it's looking like they're smoking. And then you see like this silhouette of a cape. Who's fighting that? Well, you already know who's fighting that, and it's about to lose. So that's when Clark set the whole shit ablaze, bro. Like he uses his heat vision. Mark flies back into the gas chamber, and it's just a huge ass explosion, right? And so Momark flies back. He crash lands and he catches himself a bit, and then he starts breathing hard because he's exhausted. Like even though he had this like power boost, right? It's still Superman. It's still a Kryptonian at the end of the day, under the sun, still gaining his energy back slowly but surely, right? And so that's when Momark's shirt is ripped off and stuff, right? So he's so basically he's his shirt is ripped, his pants is tethered, and then that's when you see Superman slowly walking with the eyes are still red, bro. Eyes are still red. And then that's when they turn into a shade of blue, because now he's like using his energy reserve, like his he's still getting energy from the sun, but he's still burning through it kind of. So because he's activating like his we'll call it his more heightened mode, where he actually uses his true power, or maybe not his true power, but more so of like his true potential, basically. So they begin fighting. Well, it's really not much of a fight, since Clark is pretty much like a one-sided beatdown he's giving this man right now. So he's beginning to beat on Momark, right? And as he was giving him the beats, he goes to grab him by the his suit shirt, and he was like, "I'm gonna give you one chance to walk away from this, leave." And then that's when Momark was like, "No, I am not leaving. I'm not leaving till I have my revenge and take over this world and make sure you suffer for what you did to me." And then that's when Superman says, "Suit yourself then." And then he gave him the meanest face punch and knocked him out, right? So my bad. So as that happened, as he finished knocking him out, he calls Cecile and tells him that there's been a version of Mark that came through different reality, and he needs him to come pick him up. Because as this was going on, Clark didn't know that there was an invasion of multiple different versions of Mark, evil Marks coming to invade the planet, because he already dispatched the Guardians of the Globe, and he didn't want to bother Clark since he kind of, since him and Clark already had like this rocky thing going on. So he told Clark what's going on, and so that's when Clark was like, he didn't know it was this bad, but if the Guardians need help, he'll help. And then that's when Superman listened for, destruction around the city or around the world. And that's when he blasts off, right? He blasts off to go help, right? So so we already have Momark down, right? He goes to the city and he finds Shiesty Mark and Omni Mark causing mayhem, and some of the Guardians of the Globe are not doing good. So this is basically like a 2v1. And then that's when Omni Mark was like, so you're Superman, as they call him. And then that's when Superman was like, yes, that is me. And I'm guessing you're supposed to be Omni-Man Jr. And then that's when we see Omni Mark actually get agitated with that one, because he doesn't like being called Omni Jr. So he gets mad at that, and Shiesty Mark is just trying to have the fade ran. So he just goes in rushing without a plan, and then that's when Superman dodges and legit pimp slaps Shiesty Mark away into a building, like as in like a lesser bug, basically. Sorry, the water break. That water's amazing, man. And so that's when Omni Mark and Clark began fighting, which is again another one-sided beatdown. I haven't yawned in a while, bro. That's how you know we back for real. So it's basically a one-sided beatdown again, where Omni Mark is just getting the beats, and let's like make it a little bit dramatic. He's holding his own a little bit, but since he's charged up and it's still daytime, and he's in his his heightened state, because he's putting in overtime. And so with that being said, he's over here he beat Shiesty Mark. Shiesty Mark's coming back for round 2, so now they're trying to coordinate and synchronize attacks. So it's basically a 2v1 right now, which they're still losing, but since they have the number advantage, that's when oh man, why am I yawning so much? Excuse me, guys. That's when they start double teaming and throwing cars and trying to get civilians in the way, but Clark isn't having none of that. So he uses his he gets as much strength as he can and makes like a sonic clap with his hands, which makes like a high pitched frequency, disturbing their hearing, knocking their equilibrium off, which basically gets them off balance and makes them falter, because Viltrumites have a weakness to certain sound frequencies. So that's what happens, right? That's what happens. Oh my goodness. Let me stop yawning, bro. I need to lock in. So they both fall, and they're temporarily weakened. And so that's when Mark decides to finish the job, and Clark, my bad. So Clark decides to finish the job and finish the fight. And as he was finishing up the fight, that's when other Invincible variants were they were basically being fought by Rexplode and everybody else, who were still like barely winning. And I think Rex sacrificed himself for fighting one of the Invincible variants. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Ooh, I'm sorry, bro. That GTR sounded so clean, bro. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so I think Rexplode sacrificed himself with that fight, I believe. Oh my gosh, stop yawning, man. Damn, fuck. Anyway, so yeah, and I think one of the evil variants of Mark wasn't all that bad. I don't know what happened. He could have been talked to and maybe changed sides, right? So, Samantha, Adam Eve fighting, Mark fighting Invincible variants, and this is part of Angstrom's plan, because this is where Angstrom's permanently going to be out the picture due to a twist of events, right? So we're gonna flash back to Clark finishing up fighting Omni Mark and Shiesty Mark as he puts them down, and he's taking a deep breath. He's like he was like, he's been exhausted, but he has to keep his this is where he's taking a break, right? And then that's when one of the other Marks flies at him and starts punching him, and then that's what, because Clark was kind of taken off guard, and so that's what Extra, oh my goodness, as Clark was fighting another variant of Mark. That's when Angstrom sends Sinister Mark, who is also a Kryptonian experiment, right? Because as he's a Kryptonian experiment. So Sinister Mark has been we're gonna say for that backstory, Sinister Mark was created in an alternate timeline, like I said, right? Not timeline, but an alternate universe. Phantom Zone open, sent to the Phantom Zone, worked on. Zod knows about it. Well, he really doesn't know about it. It's more like a secret in that universe. So Angstrom sends Sinister Mark into that universe, and as he said that he'll do his bidding, Sinister Mark kills Angstrom, as he says his services is no longer needed. So with that being said, he takes in the sun, and he was like, a good day to be me. And then he flies off, trying to cause havoc as usual. So we flip back to Clark, and he's fighting this variant of Mark, and he was like, he doesn't want to be evil, but he has to do what he has to do. And so that's when Clark was trying to talk him down while beating the dog shit out of him, because Clark's not going to let that shit slide. You can't just tackle him and, have some strength that could rival Superman, and don't let him find out he's stronger than you, because he gonna beat your ass for real. So as he was talking him down, he was like, you don't have to do this. You could be your own hero, and this is a different universe, and I don't know how your universe was, but maybe they'll be more forgiving. You don't have to commit to this life of villainy and have Angstrom do this to you. And then that's when the other Mark was like, is it really possible? He was like, trust me, you will have to serve time, but maybe they will come up with a plea deal and you could do hero work. But it all starts with you making the right decision today. And then that's when Clark reached out his hand, and as his hand was about to touch Clark's, that's when a quick flash happens, and that Mark's hand was sizzled off with heat vision, pinpoint accuracy. And then that's when that Mark screams, and then that's when Sinister Mark grabs that Mark by the throat, and he said, you know what your job was, and yet you would betray what we had going on. And then he was like, I don't want to do this. And then that's when Sinister Mark was like, good, then I'll force you to stop. And then that's when he takes his hand and just relocates his head, And so that's when he throws the body aside, and then that's when he turns around and sees he basically sees Mark, not Mark, Clark. And he was like, so you're the one that Angstrom's been talking about. He was like, I didn't think there was another Kryptonian. Better yet, a full-fledged one. He was like, what do you mean? How do you know about Kryptonians? He was like, I know about them because in my universe, Kryptonians were a thing, and they are not the best. I had hatred towards them at one point, but then I realized if I want to beat them, I have to become the best. And so I let them experiment on me. I let myself become a casualty, an experiment of war to further my gain in power. And after I was one of these successful batches of personnel to be a hybrid Viltrumite and Kryptonian, embracing the Kryptonian heritage while not having their weaknesses and getting rid of my own weaknesses, I've become the ultimate weapon. And then that's when he says, I am the ultimate weapon. Viltrumite strength, Kryptonian strength and abilities, while having no drawbacks. Essentially, I am truly invincible. And he said, and now that I see this world is mine for the taking. He was like, the other variants of myself have done their job, and they're made way for a real one to step in and completely invade this world. He was like, you can help me in this conquest, or you could die like the others. And then that's when Superman said, I won't die like the others. Because he was like, you may exhibit Kryptonian abilities and Viltrumite abilities, but at the end of the day, you can't match me. And then that's when Sinister Mark was like, I'd like to test that. And so they both float towards the ground, and they're a good distance away from each other. And so that's when Sinister Mark moved first, fast as hell, using Kryptonian speed, as he was like, give me everything you got. I've been itching for a proper battle. And then that's when Clark moved fast too, and he was like, I hope I don't disappoint. And so all you see is a red streak and a yellow black streak cross each other, and as they clash, they make this huge crater and shockwave. And we have Clark taking the lead as he overwhelmed Mark, crashing into a building, and they begin fighting. Every punch delivering shockwaves, with Superman dodging and then giving Sinister Mark the meanest uppercut into 4 stories. And then that's when Superman speed blitzed him. But then that's when Sinister Mark grabbed Clark by his cape and then swung him around and around and threw him out the building, which Clark catches himself. And then that's when Sinister Mark lands outside and kicks like a car towards Clark, but Clark catches it and slows it down. And then that's when Sinister Mark just goes through the car, blowing everything up, trying to punch Clark. And then Clark flies back, which he's losing a little ground, but not too much, nothing too noticeable, right? And so that's when Sinister Mark was like, do you have any idea how much trouble you were? How hard I had to fight you and actually win against you? Because you existed at one point in my reality. You fought really hard to the point everybody went to the shadows, as you even retired some heroes. So everybody was against you. You made yourself as Earth's protector. And now that I've been blessed with this opportunity to beat you again and actually know your weaknesses, maybe things won't take so long like they did last time. And then that's when Clark was like, what do you mean? He was like, your emotions are your biggest downfall. I had to make a stop while I was here. Why it took me so long, I had to make my dramatic entrance, you know. So I wonder how Mother Kent is doing, as you like to call her, well, from my universe. And then that's when Clark was like, no, what did you do? He was like, I didn't do nothing. It's what actions she took that made me respond to what I had to do. And then that's when Clark started, tearing up. And then that's when he zoomed. When I tell you Superman zoomed towards the farmhouse, he zoomed towards the farmhouse and he found everything destroyed. And then that's when he flew in to the door, and then that's when he searched around the whole yard, and then he finds something that he should have never seen. Martha literally on the how do I say this in a more respectful way? She laid out, man. Nah, that's really not respectful. But she laid out, bro. She is laid out. She's barely alive. And then that's when Sinister Mark slowly floats above him, and he was like, if you take over this world from me, I could always look the other way and, make sure this never happens again. And then that's when Clark was like, why? Why did you do this? And he was like, you know why I did this? Because you took everything from me. He was like, when I had everything with my father, you took everything away from me. You killed my father. And I was like, I did no such thing. That's when Clark said, I did no such thing. He was like, oh, you don't know how it played out in our universe. You stopped our world domination. Because this is the Mark that was in the first season, right? This is the Sinister Mark that was pre-experimented on. Because when I first started, if you remember the season 2, when we were in an alternate universe, that's Sinister Mark before he got experimented on to become a hybrid Kryptonian. Because how they took that version, Superman's power, he actually killed Omni-Man and left Mark in a critical condition after that. So he killed Omni-Man. He took Omni-Man out. And then that's when he said, you killed my father. You made us retreat for years. I had to heal because of this. That's why I got experimented on. And I swore I would get revenge on you and take everything you held dear. That's why I killed every universe I went to. I made sure I killed your mother. I made sure I killed even your father when he was alive. I made sure I killed the love of your life. Yes, I killed Adam Eve. And then that's when Superman was just getting angry. Like, he's never gotten this angry before. And then that's when he was like, I did something so ironic, so evil, if I do say so myself. He was like, I permanently ruptured Adam Eve's spine, so she will never be able to use her powers. And I did run into her on the way here as well. And you are lucky that she had teammates beside her. But given her state, she isn't the best person to be fighting right now. And then that's when Superman slowly turned away and faced him with red dark eyes, saying, what did you do to her? And then that's when Sinister Mark said, if you want to know that, you're gonna have to fight me. Or better yet, let's see who kills each other first. And then that's when Superman slowly turns around. And then that's when Sinister Mark crosses the line. He shoots a laser beam straight towards Martha's chest, slightly missing the heart. This fight is going to be so amazing. I know this is taking a dark turn, but y'all gotta let me cook, okay? Y'all gotta let me cook. All right. There's a reason why all of this is happening. So as he looks to see what happened, he runs to Martha's side, and he was like, she says she's okay, as he sees like the pool of blood, and then that's when he like sears it to try to like, you know, he tries to like stop the bleeding and try to let her heal as much as he can. And the GDA has like invisible drones seeing everything, so they already know they have to get his mother to one of their like high-tech facilities so she could, you know, heal and be okay. And then that's when Clark turns around, and you see all this wind and bioelectricity just flowing off of him, like this blue aura with red eyes. And then that's when he says, you will die. And then that's when they both clashed. And I tell you, bro, this is going to be a cinematic masterpiece. So they fly high into the sky, and Superman gives Sinister Mark the Injustice Classic combo. But this isn't just any classic Injustice combo. This is Enraged Superman Injustice combo with the blue aura. So every punch is a damn shockwave splitting clouds. Like imagine like every punch is like a shockwave splitting clouds, because this is a cloudy day. He's making this shit into not a cloudy day, but he's making this shit into into clear skies right now. Every punch he's giving is clearing weather, right? So they crash into the ocean, right? And they're fighting underwater, which Sinister Mark uses his because he has heat vision since he's part Kryptonian. So he uses his heat vision, right? And then that's when he hits Clark in the face, but Clark is eating it, bro. He glares right back and grabs his hand, right? He grabs his hand and puts it in front of him, and he's pushing back his own heat vision, and he shoves it in Mark's puts his hand over Mark's face forcefully, blowing, like making a huge ass explosion, clearing the water out and making like this steamy water. As that's when Superman was above him, having his face pressed in, and then that's when Superman gives him the meanest headbutt, creating a big ass crater into the ocean floor even more, with the water swallowing him up, right? And then that's when Sinister Mark pushes him back out to the open water, breaking the water tension as they both float above the water, and they begin to fight. Like, this is a all-out slugfest, right? And so that's when Sinister Mark was like, you're not talking. You're usually more talkative when you fight. And then that's when Clark was like, there's nothing to talk about with you. I know how to deal with your kind, and I'm not going to make the same mistake as I did before. You will die. And then that's when, oh my gosh, that's when he overextended a little bit, but then that's when Sinister Mark capitalizes it on it. And then that's when Sinister Mark begins to beat him, because he studied him, and he's realizing that his emotions will get the best of him, right? And so that's when Sinister Mark and them go into outer space, right? They fly up into outer space, right? And they're just having a huge space battle. Mind you, we're gonna skip to we're not gonna skip. We're gonna flash to how the other heroes are doing. So Samantha, so Adam Eve is recovering from the semi battle she had with Sinister Mark, and then that's when Mark and Oliver regroup with each other, and they meet up with Eve, and they get the lowdown from Cecile on how everything is going. And Cecile basically tells them that Superman is fighting the strongest variant of Mark right now, and his mom needs a hospital, so they're getting her on the way. And then that's when Eve asks what happens, and they showed the footage of what happened, and so that's when Eve gasped because she was really shocked. And then that's when Mark says that they need to help they need to go help Clark. And then that's when we flash right back to we flash right back to Mark and Clark in outer space, just going blow for blow, punch for punch right now. And so they're just going at it. They're really just going at it right now. Like there's really nothing much to say besides they're really just going at it, right? And so they come back, they break the Earth's atmosphere, flying in, crashing in like a fucking fireball, and they just blow out half a city block, and the sun is beginning to set. And then that's when Clark is, exhausted because he fought different variations of Mark, and although they're relatively kind of weak, their sheer numbers were just overwhelming at points. And so he burnt himself out, and he's still absorbing the sun, but he needs time to recharge. And so that's when Sinister Mark says, there's something that I've brought as a souvenir. And then that's when he brings out a golden kryptonite dagger, right? And then that's when he was like, this is a special souvenir specifically made for you. He said, for me, it really won't do much besides take my Kryptonian powers away permanently. But for you, this has the potential to take all your powers and make you human permanently. And this will be much more satisfying, because once I turn you human, I'll leave you alive just enough so you can watch everything that you hold dear. Everything that you hold dear fade from you. And then that's when he begins to beat down on Clark, right? And that's when he uses the dagger and stabs Clark in the chest, as Clark just can feel his power draining away as he felt the heat vision go. And then next he felt the super breath go, and he's just like, that's when Clark pushes him off using all the strength that he can muster, which is still relatively a lot. But that's when he realizes that his strength is waning, and he needs to try to find a good source of sunlight so he could try to balance it out somewhat. But Sinister Mark's not letting him go. He's throwing him through buildings, cars, putting civilians in a way with knowing Clark would try to save the civilians, and he's using all that against him. And his suit is into pieces, and his cape is ripped. And then that's when he feels like he's all out, right? And so that's when he was like, any last words before I make you pay, before your hell starts. That's when Supergirl comes booming in and beats Mark, right? Like a good 10 minutes of beating Mark. And then that's when Sinister Mark uses after a good 10 minutes passes by, that's when Sinister Mark begins to lock in. Supergirl's not having that, right? Supergirl's not having that. And then that's when he uses her cousin as leverage to make her stop. So as that was happening, right, he took the one opportunity that he had and basically just stabs her completely, right? Completely taking all her powers, right? Making her essentially human again. And then that's when Superman was like, no, Kara. And then that's when he was like, look at her trying to play hero. And then that's when Superman begins to walk slowly, because he's like, he's bleeding, right? The sun is healing him, but it's not doing as much as it should, right? And so that's when he was like, out of the Superman that I faced back in my world, I would say you probably have the strongest resistance to golden kryptonite. You still have some of your powers. Why is that? What is so special about you? And then that's when he tries to finish the job using the dagger, trying to stab Clark in the middle of his chest. But then that's when Clark holds it and is bleeding and still draining his power. And he was like, because I promised this world, I promised my mom, I promised to Pa, I promised to Eve, and I promised my father that I would do right. I would trip, stumble, and fall, but I will always get up to be the people's champion. I will always persevere no matter the odds. And then that's when he uses his force to shatter the golden kryptonite blade, right? And then as he does that, Sinister Mark is just surprised. I was like, how? I'm supposed to be the stronger one. And then that's when like this surge of solar energy just comes temporarily. And then that's when Sinister Mark flies all the way up. And then that's when Superman just looks, and he feels like his flight is fading. And then that's when he was like, he breathes in and absorbs all the radiation that he can. And then that's when he says, please help me one last time. And then that's when Sinister Mark was like, you will not take this away from me. And he shoots straight down. And then that's when Superman is just standing there. And then that's when he was like, and then that's when he hears his mom whisper. And then cause his mom is in a hospital, and now she's in a more stable condition, right? Everything's looking up. And then that's when she whispers, Clark, do what you know good and save the people. And then that's when Clark opens his eyes, right? And they're not red, they're not blue, they're just human. And so that's when Clark musters all the strength in his legs and flies like he never has. Not in a fast way, not in a like I need to beat him way, but in a gracious, merciful way. And it's just like looking so seamless. You see a red blur and you see a red blue blur with streaks of white showing up because his suit is torn. And then as they begin to clash, that's when Superman gives it his all. He musters all his power into this final punch, right? As he brings it back, you see like this solar glow, and then that's when they both scream, and he's like, ah! And then that's when they both clash, making this huge solar explosion, which Sinister Mark is dead. Yeah, he killed him. He had to kill him in a merciful way. And then that's because, like, yeah, just imagine, like, there's like this, not a huge hole, but he cracked his neck, right? He punched him so hard he cracked his neck. So that's what happened. That's basically what happened, right? So he cracked his neck, huge explosion happened, and Superman lands. And then that's when he, kneels because he no longer has his power. And then that's when he breathes heavily and looking at the sun, because the sun begins to rise. This battle took place at night, daytime, on the night, and going on to the day. And as it was reaching the a good way morning to the noon, people were coming out cheering and everything. And then that's when you hear, stand ready for my arrival, worm. And you see a Viltrumite conquest slowly floating down. And then that's when Superman was like, I don't have my power, it's gone. As he sees all this shrapnel from the golden kryptonite blade, and he was like, I can't defend the people, I can't win. And then that's when he gets on, he was already on one knee, but then he stands. And then that's when as Angstrom was presumed dead, he says, maybe I was wrong about this. Please, if anybody sees this portal open, come through and save this planet. And that's when we get the GOAT coming in at a strong black out House of L symbol with the red and blue. If y'all don't know who this Superman is, Kingdom Come Superman goes through, and then that's when he sees with it, because Kingdom Come Superman is fucking broken. Like, there isn't beating this man. And so he comes through the portal, and that's when he wonders how he got here. And so he looks around, and then he hears the conversation that Conquest and Clark are having. And even though Clark currently doesn't have his powers, since he got severely injured by the golden kryptonite, which is taking most of his powers, so he's just standing there ready to fight with whatever ounce he even think he can fathom he has left. He stands tall as all of a sudden Conquest floats down and says, do you really want this fight? Because the way you're looking, it will be pretty easy for me to break you. And then that's when the Kingdom Come Superman floats down. Everybody looks up as they hear, nobody will be breaking anything on my watch. And as you see Kingdom Come Superman float down, as he looks at Clark, and he says, you did good. You did very good. He's like, you must be a different Superman in a different universe, right? He was like, yeah, which one are you? He said, I'm the one that had more losses than anybody, but yeah, I still become the greatest superhero and keeping my morals. And then as he said that, he also looked at him. He was like, you look human. What happened? He was like, they had this gold kryptonite, which I broke and it's gone now, but it drains my powers. And he was like, here, use this. And then that's when Kingdom Come Superman put his hand on his like they shook hands, right? And then there was a huge solar glow which jump started Clark's cells, right? It jump started his cells. So after that, he was like, I feel my powers coming back. What did you do? He was like, there's some things that you should know about what suns you're under, when you're under, what certain color suns you're under. I happened to be near a white star where it boosted all my powers. It was a blue star turned white, and a blue star and white star increases our power tenfold, to the point we can have excess energy and give humans our powers. But he said that, and it could also be used to jumpstart a Kryptonians' powers, or if they ever got their powers lost or drained, they could get them back that way. And then that's when he was like, but that's a trade secret between me and you. Don't go telling anybody that. And that's when he was like, yeah. He was like, now you just rest, and I'll take care of the rest. And then that's when Kingdom Come Superman turns around, and then that's when Conquest says, you look a little old to be fighting somebody that is a seasoned warrior. And then that's when Kingdom Come said, seasoned warrior, huh? Only if you knew how seasoned I really am. And they both dash towards each other. And as they clash, the screen fades to black, and I'm gonna leave this what if off right here. I know what I said, but hear me out. It will take forever to render it on the phone. That's the only reason why I'm breaking it at 2 parts. The next season finale part will be a little bit shorter. Y'all already know what's gonna happen in that. So I hope y'all ready for this battle, because y'all already know it's gonna be a one-sided stump. I'm just gonna have to This is going to be so crazy, man. This is going to be so crazy, man. So, yeah. I hope, excuse me. I hope y'all enjoyed this What If. Y'all already know why I took such a long break. Stuff happens. Personal stuff happened. And I'm just trying to get back in the swing of things. But I hope y'all really enjoyed this What If. I appreciate y'all for all the love and support. We're almost at 110 subscribers. And I'm going to be doing back-to-back What Ifs. So I'm going to drop this season finale part 1. And then I'm going to do another What If. I don't know what, but I'm just in the mood to record and try to keep that consistency. So I appreciate y'all for all the love and support y'all been showing me. And this is Redux What If coming back strong. And as I said, man, just run it up, man. This is the new one dropping. I'm going to drop 2 or try to drop 2. But like I said, I appreciate y'all for all the love and support y'all been showing me while I was gone. I was really inconsistent. And, I just want to be better for y'all. So I appreciate y'all for all the love and support y'all really have been showing me. Like, y'all really don't understand how much that really means for me. And all the subscribers, how we hit the milestones. Now I really got to catch up because since we hit that 100 milestone, I got to do the Testament of the New Devil What If. And I might do that shit live because I'm surprised that shit didn't get copyrighted. Struck. I didn't get a strike for that. But hey, let's be real, man. Hey, a lot of YouTubers ain't doing that like me, man. But this is Redux What If signing off, man, and it's really good to be back.